Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello friends, welcome back to online NPTEL course on structure, form and architecture, the synergy. Today we are here with the lecture number 6, that is connecting structure and architecture. So before we start today's lecture, whatever we have covered so far, based on that we can say that now we have some idea like how structure is integrated with architecture and how structures support the architectural design to bring desired solution. Okay. Sometimes it will solve the function, sometimes it will also help the design to make it aesthetically pleasant. Now in this particular lecture what we will talk about, again something similar to the previous one, like the relationship. But earlier in 2 lectures we have seen that structural relationship with architecture in terms of architectural concept, and sometimes in the other lecture we have discussed about structural association which will maintain the quality, visual quality of architecture. But if you can recall the first lecture where we have asked you a question like which will come first, the structure or architecture. So basically there is no such distinct answer because they are acting together, like when the design process starts, at the same time you have to also think about structure, so that that will have a proper synergy to bring that into real world. Now sometimes in looking at some building, okay, we will find that okay, this building is something is nothing but structure. Say for example, we have taken this example of Eiffel Tower. So basically that is a structure, okay, nicely built with symmetry and all. So it is again architecture. So we cannot put it in a single category, but depending on the dominance of something, like either architectural dominance or the form dominance or sometimes structural dominance, will classify those things into different category. So in this lecture what we will do basically, will explore the relationship between structure and architecture, and here our focus will be based on the aspiration and intention of the designer. Say for example, as a designer we just design a building where I want to show some art form, okay, which will be definitely be supported with the structure, but will not really bother with the structural requirement or structural arrangement to optimize it. So sometimes we just ignore the structural constraint to make it short or small. So with the advancement of technology and different materials, nowadays it is possible to go beyond a traditional orthodox structural fitted design. Say we moved from frame structure to different cell structure and all. So there it depends on the designer or architect who will design the building, and looking at that concept, quality or overall the form that to be created. So whether there will be structure will take the predominance thing, or sometimes it may not. And sometimes with traditional orthodox beam column structure we may feel bored. So we go for making some twist or making that structure little bit interesting. So in this particular lecture we will see those kind of thing. So the varieties of relationship, as already I mentioned, that it ranging from complete domination of the architecture, where architectural form, then all these imagination, creativity will come into reality, but again we should not really take this word in a wrong manner, that when you go for that form creation we will ignore the structural requirement, because otherwise your design will be unstable. So, there will be adequate structural support to make that form, but looking at the building, what we will see the dominance of the architecture, not we will see a beam, column or something like that. Now, other thing is the pure structure, where the structure at itself representing a space. Okay. Already I mentioned like structure as architecture, one example the Eiffel Tower. So, we will see more on that also, and then sometimes it may be like we totally ignore the structural requirement, okay, nor ignore in terms of the adequate load resistance and all, but to give the form. So, we will think about the form and then adequately we give the support as and when required. So, in both the cases a building sometimes in order to make it something aesthetic, something organic. So, as already mentioned that we will go little bit out of the traditional beam, column and straightforward structural design. So, on that basis this kind of connecting architecture and structure, the form or the relationship, we can subdivide it in 5 groups. And here you will see that all these 5 groups are having similar word composition. That means, if you just put word left or right, first and last, so the group will change. So, this is very important, and that is why we should understand the difference and how we actually put a building in the category. After end of this lecture, what I will expect from you all, like you will provide more example to each of these categories. So, that we will know that how we actually categorize the building in terms of your architecture and structure relationship. And in order to know all these 5 points and different examples in all the category, we actually will have 2 lectures. This is the part 1 where we will cover 2 of these 5, and then the next lecture will be continuation of that, where we will discuss rest 3. So, first 2, this ornamentation of structure and structure as ornament. Okay. They are little bit confusing, but I am sure that end of this presentation you will able to identify the difference between these 2 category. And next lecture we will discuss about structure as architecture, structure accepted and then structure ignored. Again I am saying that we should not take this structure ignored means we compromise the structural requirement, it is not, but to create the form, in form making we just go beyond the traditional structural system and all. So, we will go to look into all these examples. So, let us move on with the ornamentation of structure. So, what is ornamentation of structure? Before we go further detail with some other example, we all know this building, right. So, this is Parthenon, Parthenon from Athens, Greece. So, what exactly it is and why it is ornamentation of structure? What is the meaning of ornamentation? Means decoration, more carving, something like that. So, ornament is to making something beautiful in details, and structure already we have discussed with different definitions, and time to time almost in all lectures so far we have used the definition of the structure. So, it is basically parts of a building in terms of building structure, parts of a building which will resist all applied or imposed load to that building. Okay. So, here it is something like what we see that whatever the structure remains, it is basically some combination of column and beam, right. So, this your beam and column composition. Okay. So, with that this is very simple structural arrangement. So, we just make vertical columns and horizontal beam which will make the structure stable. But it is not the simple beam column nowadays we see for the high like your frame structure. Normally we use some rectangular cross section of that, sometimes it is circular, but what is additional to it, if you see the column. Okay. So, there is some decoration, and at the top portion of the column which is also referred as capital, okay, it has some decoration. Okay. So, we ornament this particular structure. So, basic structure is there, but in order to make it more aesthetically present, we put some decoration to it and come up with some good solution. So, the upcoming slides will have some example under this category. So, basically what is the fundamental in order to look at a building and say that this is under this category. So, looking at the building, we should able to identify that overall the space creation is dictated by the structural form, like structural arrangement rather. So, structural requirement dictated the form, it is simple post and beam structure that we have, that will highlight the visual expression. So, here looking at this, if we just make alternative to that, okay. So, we should not really dare to compete with that, but if we want to simplify with the rectangular one, so we will have some post, and then you have some beam your beam structure. So, post refer to that vertical columns, and beam already you know. So, this is the arrangement normally. And now, in order to beautify this, so we what they have done, they have used this ornamentation. So, here it is Doric order used, where you have the one property that this particular cross section will vary, and at the top it is little bit tempered, and the reason is these all are made in some monumental scale. So, we know the perspective concept, right. So, whenever like we see a tall building, so basically that will act as a 3-point perspective. So, for a high rise building, so what we see from the bottom, so it is something like that, means it is merging to a points, but the point is it is not exactly the same, even the rectangular one. So, this has been created to correct the visual error. So, the example, if you make your structure little bit tempered downwards or something, you will have something different. So, here they have made some correction in that. In the history, like this has been covered extensively. So, sometimes we make those correction. So, here in the Doric column, what is the features, that at the top and near the capital there will be some reduction in that, and you have a capital like this. Now, this slide will clear this thing more accurately. So, if you see that this particular plan and elevation, which is obviously restored after that, that was restored drawing. So, here you see all these solid circles, small circles are the columns, and it is arrangement of that, a regular interval columns, they make this building like that. Okay. And now, if you see this particular painting, where it is definitely in overall sense, it is just arrangement, a combination of your post beam or the column beam arrangement, but all other decorations, especially in the column or in the beam, those are additional ornament to it, which add value to it, and it will definitely it makes the structure different from a traditional beam column structure. So, it has been in practice in the Greek architecture, apart from this Parthenon, we have many such buildings there, where they have used. Now, for the decoration, let look into the history. So, here are different type of columns or posts being used. So, Doric order, which was used in Parthenon, you see the capital how it is being made. It is very simple, staggered, and there is some minimal ornamentation to that. Where we come to Ionic, so the capital will have some involute to create some wave or something like that, and when it is Corinthian is more curving and all, and overall it will give you it with this picture you can see it is something like leaves and other thing give more organic look to the capital of the column. So, with that we create different kind of ornamentation of structure. So, basic structure is again post or column, but now with these carvings and all, so it is basically some ornamentation which add value to the structure. This is another example where Doric column is used, that is Auckland War Memorial Museum. You can easily identify these things. So, these are basically a cylindrical post, pillar, but having those cross sections. So, basically it is not exactly the circle. So, instead of that basically if you draw it correctly, so you will have this kind of cross section, and at the top also the capital is designed in a different manner. It is not a pointed beam column that we normally used for the frame structure. Now, this is from example of Doric, and now move to the next one. This is Jefferson Memorial in Washington DC. So, here also if you see the entrance where the column is used, and this is exactly the same that we have seen for the Ionic column. So, at the capital you have some some involute or something to make it beautiful. So, this is another example of ornamentation of structure, and that is following the Ionic column. Move to the next one. This is the New York Stock Exchange, and here if you see the capital, again it is pretty similar. Now, I think it is clear if you compare the slide where I have shown different 3 types of the column style at the capital. So, here it is definitely for the Corinthian, where it is giving more organic leaves and other floral kind of final outcome. So, this is something really interesting. So, it could be a straight beam column, but to give that classical look, to maintain that important history or something. So, we can still use it even in the modern building we can, and after that there are other types that Tuscan and other combination at the later stage after in the Gothic or after that also. So, decoration, this particular tradition is being practiced to ornament the simple structure. So, here we have seen 3 examples, 3 buildings where like one followed the Doric, the other one is your Ionic, and this is Corinthian. Move on to this building, Potter building in New York. Here also it is something where this beautiful curvature being made. So, this ornamentation it is mixed of many. So, this is a corner portion, and even the arches, everything is having some extra ornamentation, and that is why it make this building little bit different. So, this is giving a terracotta look to the whole structure, and again you see the combination, it is basically adding some ornament to the basic structure. So, this is another example of this category ornament of structure. A previous lecture also I have shown you where the span is covered with this mushroom column. So, this is basically the mushroom column. So, we know the mushroom. So, with that concept we developed it. So, the slab and the column, their connection, the simple geometry is connecting at this normal or at right angle, but here it is something where they have a smooth transition. So, it could be a simple cylindrical column, normally we can see in flyovers or some of the elevated roads, the metro, elevated metro corridor, where normally you have the cylindrical or like cuboidal piers, and on top of that you have this particular corridor or maybe the flyover. But this section can be improved like this, where we can ornament it. It maintained the proper geometry and all, but finally outcome, looking at that, it is not a simple column slab combination, rather than it is some additional ornamentation to that combination. So, this is a modern example of that, and it is from Mumbai International Airport, that already we have discussed in some of the earlier presentations. So, before we move to this particular next category, so let us clear this out. So, what is the basic concept to put a building in this category? That looking at the building, we will simplify it with, this is just like a structure, okay, typical beam, post or beam column structure, and if the space is being created with the arrangement of these beam and columns. This is the fundamental. Okay. Now, addition to that, we add some ornament following some style, sometimes it may be a combination. So, we used in earlier case in Greek and Roman architecture, there we used different Doric, and we can later on your Corinthian, and then after that a mix of that. So, that made the very simplistic beam and column to really a piece of ornament. So, that is basically the ornamentation. So, along with some past like historic example, I have also shown some modern examples, so that it will be clear that nowadays also it is in practice. So, these are very few ornamentation that I have shown, but definitely you can explore more, and I also want you to do that. So, you go through different piece of building and then try to analyze that what exactly it is, that how much ornamentation being done, and can we put that building in this. So, then we will discuss in time to come. Now, move to the next topic for this lecture, that is structure as ornament. Now, here we have to be very much careful. Earlier it was ornamentation of structure, now structure as ornament. That means, in this category we will get to know about the buildings where we used basically a structure that act as an ornament to the space creation. Now, how it is different from the last one, that ornamentation of structure? In ornamentation of structure, basic is your structural requirement fulfillment, and then we add some decoration to it. Here the basic function is being met with some basic structure, and then some structural arrangement put into that building, which will act as ornament. So, structure itself act as ornament. So, in this building also, if you see, this is basically showing all the services, there are cross bracing, there are some tube structure. So, this is having this escalator, having cantilever. So, everything all together it is making some impression of the structural arrangement. So, here it is something like structure act as ornament to this building, which is very simple rectangular building, but this adds value to this. So, here it acts as a ornament. So, here basically what normally we when we see any building, we will see if the building, the structure is given visual prominence. Okay. So, that may fall into this category. Say for example, this is Lloyd headquarters building. So, here if you see that this building form and other space are very simple functional rectangular shape, but if you see all these duct like it is exposed, all these vertical services and other thing which is made of steel which act as ornament to that. Otherwise, it could be a simple multi-story building, rectangular building, we will see this beam column, but this exposed or externally placed all these services add some value to it as ornament. So, as true if you see the inside interior of that building, where again it has a prominence. So, all these structural bracing is visible, there are rafters, mullions, then you have this particular structural arrangement for the roof. So, it is all together. If you look at the building, you will first see that everything wherever you look, this is a structure, and in order to make it a little bit beautiful, if you see, if you can search more on this building. So, this is not straightforward, there are also some ornamentation kind of thing been made, so that this can add some value as ornament. Okay. So, building was very simple, but all this structure adds some value as ornament. So, design process is driven by visual rather than technical consideration in this category. So, we have to understand that what exactly. So, technical consideration it could be, see, if I redesign the building, okay, maybe take a similar kind of example. So, in order to just fulfill the functions, we can simply make it with your some slab and then beam column, but here structure should be visually upcoming, okay, visually pleasant, and on that the emphasis given on that visual rather than technical, and that is why if you see all those structural elements, they act as like some to make this building more beautiful. So, these are being placed as a beautification elements or as ornament. So, with that move to the interior view of the same building, here you can see, okay, here all these circular column, then the beam. So, everything act as ornament, and this is another picture where it can be easily seen like all these services, all the pipes are externally placed, which add some value to it as ornament. Move to this one. So, that was the title slide also. So, here if you see that the building is again a rectangular one, and it is from Centre Pompidou in Paris, a museum. So, here in this case if you look into the overall arrangement. So, basically this is again a vertical service being placed outside, and it is being decorated and covered with some transparent material. So, these all portions are supported with some cantilever and other things. So, these are visible. It is not for that one cannot hide, could not hide it from the viewer, but rather the architect wanted this to be exposed and act as like people can easily understand the type of structure being used, and it is so beautifully placed in order with some rhythm. So, that it acts the structure itself act as ornament. But the study says instead of making this cantilever all these structures. So, if you could have used it with a simple one, you can even save like more than 25% of the structural elements. That means, here that was not the constant. So, make this building like something, a piece of structural arrangement, and add beautifications for each and every corner. So, all these joints are very beautifully placed, maintaining some rhythm and all. So, that this building come up as a one example under this structure as ornament category. This is another example that we discussed in earlier presentation also under the category of ribbed structure, but here also if you see, this is the exterior and these two are from interior. So, here if you see the detail is nothing but the structural arrangement, and here it is all exposed and very beautifully done. Say for example, if you see this inside, so the regular spacing of this vertical member and then close spacing of these horizontal members, that create some kind of interesting features to the interior, and along with these ribs and other thing, along with the glass and other composition. So, basically that add some value to this spherical architecture. So, here if you see that it could be designed with some other technique, with some cell structure or something, but here it is basically designed in that category. And if you look into this, so structure here being used and very predominant. So, dominance of structure is there and act as ornament, so that it adds some value. So, it could be very straight way design or something, but here in order to make it aesthetically pleasant, so some of the neat finishes and the combination of different structure being made. So, this is very important to know this kind of relationship, where we can connect the structure to the building as ornament. So, connecting structure with the architecture, this is the second category. So, now we come to the end of this particular presentation. So, here we have discussed about ornamentation of structure and structure as ornament. Though both are having similar words, just here and there the combination, but definitely we got to know some of the thing we can distinguish. So, again to quick recap. So, the first category, ornamentation of structure, and the other is structure as ornament. So, what exactly? So, ornamentation of structure means structure is the basis that dictate everything. So, a typical say I just try to make one building. So, these are beam and these dots are like your columns, and we make the elevation, that is the beam, and then you have this structure, maybe a shelter or something. But this is very simple structure driven, there is nothing to play with some other form and all. But now instead of this, I just replace this arrangement with the beam is there, and then we just ornament it with some different structural element. Okay. I just give some other look, or maybe we just decorate like the other columns and other things. So, give a classical look to it. So, depending on the need we can do it. So, basic fundamental is the structural dictation to the form, and we ornament it with some decoration. Here it is something that your structure is being supported with something, and very easy form may go, but here the use of structure is very predominance, and perfect execution of all the structural element together add some value to the building. So, here the structure itself act as ornament, and we have seen two buildings, one is the museum, then other one that spherical one with the reef structure that we have seen. So, these all are example under this structure as ornament, and that the Lloyd headquarter also we have seen the services, which normally in the building we just hide it with the duct and all, but here it was shown and with the structural like steel, application of steel and other metals. So, that act as a structure itself as ornament to the building. So, then we will discuss this three structure as architecture, accepted and ignored, in the next lecture. And these are the reading materials, I keep on updating it whenever I add some new source to it, and here also some of the informations are taken from the book structure and architecture. So, you can also refer to those books and also go through those links that being provided under each of these picture I have taken. So, that you can go to get more information about that. And as already mentioned, we will be discussing the rest 3 category in part 2, and like for this time being, bye bye, take care, thank you.